imagination. But pre-flighting is actually, you know, using the pre-flight profile is actually the first thing we should be doing with any project. So this was done with no consideration for print. So we're just going to take a look at this. I'm going to grab that spring print profile and take a look at everything I've got. The nice thing about this panel is that if I open up one of these and select one of the errors, it will tell me everything I need to know about it here at the bottom. So the problem is with this particular set of images, the content's RGB and it requires CMYK images. So we need to correct these kinds of things. And that's actually going to be the case with pretty much everything in this file. So we're going to fix those. When we did this, like I said, I just placed images. I downloaded a set of JPEGs, we placed them in here. The purpose was not to print it at the time, it was to place images and that kind of stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and there's a handful of images here that I'm just going to go ahead and get ready for print. Then we'll package it and we'll create a PDF file and those sorts of things. So I want to start with this first one. And if I click on the number, it'll take me directly to the image that's the problem. And if I right click on that image or control click on it, if I go down below halfway, there is edit original and edit with. You don't want to edit original. On a Mac, edit original is going to open it in preview, which does you no good. You do want to edit it with, I want to edit with Photoshop. And when you do that, it'll launch Photoshop for you and open the file. So we'll wait on that to happen. There's our image. So the first thing we need to do is change this color space. And right now, if we take a look at the tab in Photoshop, it says that it's an RGB 8-bit image. So we can change the color space of this two different ways. And actually, recently I've learned that one of these ways is better than the other, but I did it this first way forever, and things came out right. So I'll show them to you both, kind of let you decide. But the first option is if you go to the image menu to mode, you can switch from RGB color to CMYK color. So that's the first way to do it. This is the way it was explained to me by a print prepress guy, was that the CMYK setting is relatively generic. It tries to take into account all the possible different color spaces. And really in the US, there's a primary color, or CMYK color space that printers use 85% of the time. So, so we can do it that way and it'll work out all right. The other way to do it is go under the File menu or Edit menu. I always forget. Yeah, Edit menu. And if I go towards the bottom, there is Convert to Profile. And if I select Convert to Profile, I'm not sure what options you're going to have here, but I want my destination color space to be US web coded swap V2. That's kind of the default CMYK color space. So if you, and there's a whole bunch of options here, I mean, but for general use, that one works well. And just say OK, and it will switch it to CMYK, and it should balance the colors pretty well. You know, I like the color space, I like the color of this image. If there's anything else, if I wanted to brighten this up or anything, that's what I would do here. Color correction and whatnot is all that's for digital media, but Minimally for everything we're doing, we'll make this color adjustment and then save this file. But remember whenever I talked about file formats, JPEG file format is not a JPEGs are intended for web use and for RGB images, same way with PNG files, WebP. Those are all web-based formats intended for RGB. CMYK images, the file formats intended for those are .psd, just a generic PSD file, which we can use and place. .tif would be the other one, a TIFF file. So I'm going to take this, and rather than just saving this file as it is, what I should be doing is doing a save as. And I got no idea. It should take you to the original folder that the images are in. And go to the bottom of it where it says format and change it to either Photoshop or TIFF, one of the two. Those will both work well. I usually save stuff as Photoshop because usually I'll have layers for color correction and that kind of stuff in, and I like to maintain those. And they work just fine in InDesign and an Illustrator file. So I'm going to choose Photoshop document, PSD, and I'm just going to name it Apples CMYK, just so I know that I've made the change. I'm frequently a little lazier than this and just do the file format change and leave everything else alone, but clearly naming it is a good idea, just so you know. And then we'll save that. And then we'll go back into our InDesign file with this still selected, and I'm just going to go to color, or I'm going to go to File, Place, up here. And I need to go find, probably the easiest way on a Mac to find the folder that you last saved something to or you last worked out of is when you open this drop down at the top of the place menu, go down just below the divider, and the top one should be the folder that you save that file into. So select that, make sure replace selected item is selected, and say open, and it'll drop it right in there. And we had 8 errors before, and now we're down to only 7. And we need to do that exact same thing for the other images that are in our document, if they're not the right color space. So I'm just going to go through this list. I'll click on the next number 1. That's this image. Control click, edit with, Photoshop. Open it up, and I'm just going to follow the same process. Edit, convert to profile. My last selected profile should be selected. It should be very simple and quick from this point forward. So as long as that's selected, I'll say OK. File, save as, beach. CMYK. I'm going to make it a Photoshop document, .psd, say save. Go back to my InDesign file. That's still selected. File, place. I'm going to start using Command D from this point forward because Command D is the very quick way to do this. There's my beach image. Replace the selected item, say OK. And there's another one down. I just need to go through all of these and do that. So edit with, Photoshop, edit, color settings, whoops, edit, convert to profile, US Web Coded Swap version 2, say OK. And save as donut.png. PSD. Change JPEG to Photoshop. Donut. I do find that giving some color designation to my file name, especially when I've got multiple files, is a good idea. It just helps me quickly identify the proper images. So I've got that. Command D. There's my donut. Replace selected items, say open. So on and so forth. When I did this beach image got updated automatically. Or wait a minute, no it didn't. I still need to, because I have to change out the image. So the beach image I've already done. Select that, grab my beach, grab this one, control, edit with, Photoshop, edit, convert to profile, say okay, save as, mirror, CMYK. I'll make that a Photoshop document, Photoshop file. These files, when we're no longer saving them as JPEG images, they do get bigger, if you've noticed. For instance, I'll go ahead and do this one. Edit, convert to profile. Okay. Save as. Stairs dash CMYK. Make it a Photoshop document or a TIFF file. Now I'll go back and place this one. So if I take a look at these, the PSD files that I've made are now like anywhere between 5 and 4 megabytes. But the original JPEG files are much smaller than that. They're only a couple hundred K. That's because of the compression method that JPEGs use. It swaps out pixels. The point of a JPEG file in any web-based format is to make the file size smaller for faster transmission and file download. But as JPEG, as such, they lose quality from the original. So when we save the PSD file, save as a PSD, we stop any of that file degradation. I mean, these files are bigger because it saves every single bit of the information. And the more layers you add to it, the bigger the files get. So, but that's just kind of the reality of desktop publishing, really. So, and we got our last, no, I've got my last one here. So let me, oh, after all of that, I forgot what I was doing. Edit, convert to profile. Okay. I think I am going to save as, and One-minute hut. Photoshop. go back here and replace this file. And there I go. So I am down to a single file, a single item that's out of resolution, and that's my Apple's CMYK file. So let's see, what did I do here? So it does tell me when I select this file, it tells me right now that the effective resolution of it is 120 or 123 ppi. There is likely no way I'm going to get this image big enough to be printable. So my options are to either resize it, scale it down so that the resolution tightens up, but that's likely not going to be the image I want, or I need to go find another image. What I'm kind of figuring is that when I downloaded this file, I downloaded a smaller version of it rather than the largest one that was available. So I could probably go back to the stock site that I got this from, download a bigger image, and get one that's in resolution. But I'm not going to fix that no matter what. That's why when we were doing the when we were looking at pre-flight profiles on Wednesday, I said, make sure that you are looking at this all the way through your creation, your cell sheet creation process, because now is the time, at the time you're building something, is the time to catch that an image isn't big enough. You don't want to find out after a client's approved it, because when they approve it, they approve everything about it, you know? You don't want to have to go back and have that conversation ever. So I likely need to find another image here. There are some, and you really can't, I mean, there are some techniques to actually increase the resolution of a Photoshop document. I'm not going to go into those here, or a JPEG file. There's a few that you can do in Photoshop, and it's a staged process. It's, you go into Photoshop, you increase the size of the image, sharpen it, do a little bit of blurring to it, just to eliminate pixels, and then enlarge it again. It's a couple of processes repeated over and over again. There are also some very good online resources for increasing the resolution of images as well. And those are all AI driven. There's a couple of free ones. I can't think of the name of them off the top of my head. I actually have one. I have a couple of clients that are notorious for sending me images that just won't work no matter what. So I do have, I paid for a subscription for Topaz Gigapixel, and it does an outstanding job with increasing the resolution of images. And this is just kind of an aside, but I'm going to open up an image in here real quick just to show you. Let's grab our original. There's my original Apple's image. There it is. Let's grab this. I want to open it. And it is, yeah, I downloaded a pretty small version of this one. It's only 1200 by 976 pixels. So I can use Topaz to actually, I'm going to increase it by 4 times. But if you take a look, it's going to increase my file size from 1200 by just under 1000 to 4800 pixels wide. And if we take a look on either side of this, I don't know if you can see it up there very well, but this side is the up-res version, this side is the original. And it does do a pretty nice job of sharpening up an image. So I'm just using standard. There's a bunch of different settings. I find this works pretty well in a pinch. So But, so just so that I can get through this, I'm going to let it, I'll go ahead and save it. Now I need to reopen that file in Photoshop, though. It only works on RGB JPEGs, or RGB images. Let's open. There's the one I just did. Nice and sharp. Convert to profile. Okay. And then let's save as. Apples. Upresed. Okay. So there are ways to increase the resolution of images. If you can find an online, resource, that's great. But otherwise, anytime you're downloading images online, always pay attention to how big they are. We're generally not using Google to find stuff. If you want a group of iPhones to be used in your cell sheet, you illustrated one, and you made the screens separate, you can just replace out screens if you wanted to, So, consider making your assets, but so let's go D, Apple's upresed, CMYK, and there we go. So now, I can even make this a little bigger if I want. So now, this is my goal right here. Whenever I am preparing anything for print, I've got a green light down here. I've got no errors here. This is ready to go. But like I said, the errors that it gives you here, click on the page number. It'll take you right to the image, and select it, go down here to info, and it'll tell you exactly what's wrong with it, and even make a suggestion as to what you need to do to correct it. So it really doesn't get much simpler than that. You just got to think of it early. You just got to follow the process, all right? But that's far easier to do as you're working on something than it is at the 11th hour. And, I had 8 errors there. The demo file I usually use for this class that I decided not to do this year is a multi-page book. And those frequently had several hundred errors in them by the time we went and did this step with it. So either way, I now have a file that is ready to print. And I'm going to save that. And usually for most printers, what I need to prepare are 2 separate files. The first I need to give them is a collected native file, InDesign file, which the process for doing that is just like we did with Illustrator. So, which we'll do in a moment. The second method the second thing we need to do is create a PDF file of it. And anything I send to print, and sometimes printers will just want the PDF file, that's fine. We just got to know how to build them correctly. But always be prepared to do both, all right? So, I'm going to start by creating a PDF file of this that can be printed. So if I go to my File menu and go down here to, there are 2 places to do this. One's PDF presets. I'm not going to use that one. I'm actually, in InDesign, there's this export option, Command E. If I select export, I can export as anything I want, but I want to select Adobe PDF for print. The difference between Adobe PDF for print and Adobe PDF for interactive is that The interactive creates an RGB color space and will actually create a PDF file that if you put links, live links, into your InDesign document, it'll export those as links to clickable links in a PDF file. In PDF for print, we don't do that because we can't. So I'm going to select Adobe PDF for print, and these are my product cell sheets, and I'm just going to save them right into the folder with my other cell sheets. So we'll do that. Frequently I'll put print along with that just so I know. So I'm going to select PDF for print. The other reason I might select interactive is if I just need to send a proof to somebody. I need to send a proof to my client or to somebody else to take a look at and approve. A PDF interactive is going to be smaller than a PDF for print. PDF for print will save full resolution images, which is why we just went through that step of changing all the color spaces on those photos and fixing our one major image. PDF for print saves a much larger file size with a lot more information that's needed for printing. So I'm going to select that and say save, and I'll get this dialog. Yours might be slightly different. Mine says high quality for print, and I'm just going to export this as pages because it's only one page. Your cell sheet, your iPhone cell sheet will be 2 pages, but we're going to do the same thing. It's just going to be pages that you want to select. And then compression we'll leave alone. It's set, the compression set to all the right settings, 300, because because I'm using this high quality print and I selected print as my option. And then we need to go to marks and bleeds. Every print file, PDF file, needs to have or should have crop marks and trim marks on them. So a lot of this I'm not going to worry about, but I'm going to start by going down here to bleed and slug, and I'm going to use my document bleed settings. So long as when I set my document up originally, if you recall when we set these up, we set a bleed at 0.125 inches. So the document has the bleed built into it. And I can check this box. It'll grab those dimensions, and it's going to create my bleed marks and my bleed at the appropriate sizes. If my document does not specify bleed, I set it up and I left 0 in those fields, but I pulled my image out beyond the edges manually, then I do need to manually set my bleed dimensions to 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to use my document bleed settings, and then I'm going to go up here and just turn on crop marks and registration marks. You can turn them all on if you want. Nobody's going to complain. This keeps the PDF cleaner, I think, so I just use those. So when I'm done, what I should have are 2 sets of crop marks, and I'll show you in a moment. 2 sets of crop marks, registration marks, and it should show the bleed that I have applied to this image. So we'll go ahead and export this. And now, wonder if I can remember where this file is at. Oops. Work, new, option 1. InDesign cell sheets. Here's my PDF file I just created. And if I open this up, it'll open an Adobe Acrobat. And here's my print optimized PDF. So, and actually I didn't specify bleed marks, so there's no bleed marks on this, but that's probably okay too. What I do have though is, these are on all 4 corners. These are crop marks. Anytime a document's printed by a printer, This particular document would not be printed on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. It's too small because I've got color that goes beyond the edges. So they'll actually print to probably a 12/18 sheet, or they might put 4 or 5 of these, 6 of these up on a much larger sheet, so that they, just for economies of scale, basically, larger sheets get more, more copies out of a sheet is less expensive. But when they do that, these will print, and then at the end of the process, they'll put them in a paper cutter, and they'll cut right on these crop marks, and our cell sheets will come out to the 8.5 by 11 size that they're supposed to be. These are registration marks. So basically, this is where that registration color actually that's part of the InDesign document comes into play. These actually have that registration color applied to them. So every single color plate, my cyan, my magenta, my yellow, and my black, will all have this registration mark on it. And as it's being printed, they can use those registration marks to make sure that the press is staying in register. And if they notice the color shifting and these not staying nice and dark this way, they can make adjustments on press for the registration. So that's why we provide those. You may or may not remember that. That's fine, but that's the reason for those elements. So when I say you need to package and collect and create a print optimized PDF file, this is a print PDF file. The alternative being, if I go export and instead of for print, I do interactive, I'm just going to get this dialog box. And it's got a lot of different options in it. I don't get all of the print variables. So I'm just going to leave that as it is. Say export. And here's the way this file comes out. What's missing from it? Missing my registration marks, my crop marks, and it's even missing my bleed. But if I'm doing online delivery of a document, this is a downloadable PDF report of some kind, this is generally how people want them. Having the crop marks don't matter to them, because this I can view easily on my computer without all the extra stuff. So that's why we've got the options. So any questions about creating that print PDF before I wrap this up? Okay, so there's our PDF. The last thing we need to do is package this for output. And so what I'm going to do is go to my File menu, go down to Package, just like we did in Illustrator. And I'll get this dialog. So nice thing about packaging is, if we hadn't pre-flighted our file, done all this work over here, we would see all of those errors here. It'd let us know about all of those. It's one last check to give us a chance to make sure we get it right. So this is all good. It's clean. I'm really not going to worry about most of this. I mean, it just tells you all the images that you've got in it and that kind of thing, the print settings, the colors. This is just a 4-color project. And when I'm done, I'll just say package, and it must be saved first. And then product cell sheets folder. I'm just going to save that back to the original folder I was working in. But let's take a look here at the bottom. It's going to, and we're just going to leave all these checked. It's going to copy fonts, copy linked graphics, update. When it copies the graphics, it'll then update the links within this new packaged file. It's going to include an IDML file. So when we look at this, there's going to be two InDesign, basically two files that have the InDesign icon on them. IDML is intended for older versions of InDesign. So I'm always working with the up-to-date version, but if I send it to somebody that has an older version or has a PC with a slightly older version, the InDesign file may not open, but the IDML file will. So it's like a backwards compatible version. And I can include my PDF for print. And if I've got presets already created, I can select the preset. I can actually do this packaging and PDFing process at the same time if I want, but I encourage you to do them separately to be sure that you get the PDF file that you want. So we'll do that. We'll say package. We'll wait on it. And now if I go back here to my Finder and I take a look, here's the product sell sheets folder that I just created. Just so I know what it is, I'm going to give it a green label. And if I open that up, here's the fonts that I used. Here are all my links. My IDML file, my InDesign file, and it created a sell sheet for me as a proof. So what I want to do is this folder with all of these items in it, I'm just going to control click on that, compress it, just make the file smaller. It's still almost 110 megs, that file is. So that zip file and this print PDF file are the two files I want to upload to Brightspace for my sell sheet and for when we do our print ad assignment, as well as for our final assignment. We're actually going to redo this PDF process when we talk about our final, because we have to do this slightly differently because there's print spreads involved, which we're just working with single pages right now, fronts and backs. It's a little bit different that way. But there we go. The other reason I kind of want you to create this PDF file is that we are actually going to print for next Friday. When you come to class, your sell sheet should be done, and you should have a print of it, properly printed front to back. We're actually going to create the PDF file. We're going to print from the PDF file rather than straight from our InDesign file. Gives us some flexibility. So also make sure that I'm printing what I want to print. But that's on, I think, Monday or Wednesday, one of the two. I figured we would print a two-sided PDF file. I'll take my sample sell sheet. We'll print that and we'll go down to 151, and they should have most everything. Does everybody have, most of you anyway, should probably have your own X-Acto knives, that kind of stuff, rulers. So you'll need to, we'll print these on larger sheets and you'll trim them down so that the bleed's intact and everything else. So we'll do that. We'll do it with our print ad, and we're going to do it with our multi-page book, and that's just a whole different thing. So we'll spend probably a class period on that one. But so that's what we send to print, that zip file as well as that print PDF file. And those are the files that you'll upload to Brightspace. Do not, whatever you do not ever upload to Brightspace an InDesign file without all the other stuff. It does me absolutely no good, and I can't grade it. All right? But I do download the zip file. I'll open it up. Because we packaged it, all the links will be intact, and I can check everything real easily. So that's how we do that. Any questions?